Here are my top 10 most power-crept cards. And what I mean by power-crept, first of all, is that a card that used to be good, or used to be at least somewhat relevant, but is no longer played because there's just better and stronger options of that card that straight up replace it, or it's just not as good as it used to be because it's just not a staple anymore. So these are my opinions, and make sure you just take this with a grain of salt.
Come, face me, give in to your pride.
Number 10, we have Karma Cut being replaced by Dino-Miscus. Karma Cut is a cost to discard, whereas Dino-Miscus is an effect. If your opponent negates this, well, why would you want to discard when you could just keep your card instead? So unless you have a super awesome graveyard effect or something, for the most part, it would just be better to keep the card in hand. Dino-Miscus does everything Karma Cut does, but better, and it gives you a 1200 attack beatstick if necessary, or a wall. And that's assuming, of course, that your deck has no rank 2 plays. Number 9, Zen Mains being replaced by Breaksword or Grampulse. Now, it was a genuine staple in any deck that could make a rank 3, but now it's basically obsolete. It used to be really good because you could wall up with it and your opponent would risk losing a card if they tried to out it, but walling up just doesn't work anymore these days. There's just so many ways to out Zen Mains with things like Whiptail and non-targeted spinning and stuff. Zen Mains was good because it could stick to the board, but it is just never going to stay for more than a turn in 2017. Your opponent would have to out it 3 times before they could permanently get rid of it, or risk losing their cards in the process. And you could even remove things like back row if you needed to with Zen Mains by attacking and taking some damage and then popping in the end phase. But today, as I mentioned, if you want to out things, you can literally just play Breaksword or Grampulse and maybe even wall up with Fortune Tune. For the most part, I don't think Zen Mains will see much play ever again in a rank 3 deck. Number 8, Ghor's and Tragodia. These haven't really been replaced by anything per se, but I can at least remember a few Mermail decks as recently as 2014 that played a copy of Ghor's, since, well, it was one of the few decks at the time that didn't run any real back row, and it was an allure target. But today in 2017, that ass-clenching fear of declaring an attack from lowest to highest is just not a thing anymore from like plants and synchros. Ghor's isn't frightening because nobody plays it anymore, let alone Tragodia, which obviously does have a couple of cool plays, but dropping a vanilla or a vanilla with a token during your opponent's turn in the battle phase is for the most part meaningless, especially when your decks can do so much during the main phase now. You don't need to rely on attacking over monsters to get rid of monsters anymore. Number 7, we have Bottomless and Regular Trap Hole. Again, it's not a card replaced by anything, but in the day and age of combos, 3 to 4 card interactions, decks have found less and less space for generically good cards and traps, especially because they're just too slow unless they have some real punch behind them like D-Barrier, Strike, and even Torrential. Bottomless used to be a staple in every deck for like the longest time ever, but now, like, who even plays around it anymore? Number 6, Jinzo, Breaker, Lila, Yaksha, and other normal summons that deal with back row. With the exception of Denko Sekka, these cards quickly became retired to make space for something as powerful as Denko. Being able to completely shut down every single back row your opponent has other than warning is leagues and miles ahead of summoning a guy, targeting one single back row, and then waiting for a response. When Chaos Shaddoll was a thing, seeing Burning Abyss, Cleat, and Telenite players react like a deer in the headlights was absolute gold. In terms of normal summons that deal with back row, nothing can come close to Denko. Number 5, we have Santa Claus, Volcanic Queen, Lava Golem being replaced by Sphere Mode or the Kaijus. Now, first turn boards and towers like monsters have been in the game for kind of a while, but they've never been as powerful as we've seen in recent years, like the Power Ranger, for example. These were the go-to answers to big powerful things that couldn't be targeted or destroyed, but nowadays you can literally play like 6 different names of kaijus who are all searchable, and you'll still get to keep your normal summon. And even if for some bizarre reason you want to use your normal summon, Sphere Mode will get rid of problems like Dark Claw, Bahamut Shark, and Totally Awesome in one single move, for example against heroes with Norden. Super powerful Protect the Castle boss monsters are probably not going to be super relevant in Yu-Gi-Oh! Except in like really niche situations, for example like Masterpiece, because kaijus just provide so much disruption to your opponent's strategy. Number 4, Direwolf, Maestroke, Honor Arc, and Black Ship of Corn being replaced by Castel or Tornado Dragon. Honor Arc was a really powerful card back in 2014. People would summon their Stardust or Felgrand in defense. That was just not uncommon at all because they wanted to play around Honor Arc. But today, Castel does essentially the exact same thing without the defense restriction of Arc or the attack restriction of Black Ship, just the straight up underwhelming nature of Maestroke or the self removal of Direwolf. And it can spin floodgates and scales as well on top of that. And for back row, instead of Direwolf, you can have Tornado Dragon, which is a quick play. Direwolf is probably the most relevant out of these, and it might see some play for the future, especially if you want to pop a back row but keep your link zone free. But for the most part, these cards have been power creeped. And I could just consider this for a moment. Maestroke was once the most powerful rank 4 in Yu-Gi-Oh! And yet look at where we are today, and just let that sink in. Seriously, shout outs to Castel, because that thing alone has made like 4 cards redundant, and that is fucking crazy. Number 3, Breakthrough Skill and Fiendish Chain being replaced by Solemn Strike, D-Barrier, and even Lost Wind. So when would you really want to play Fiendish over Strike? Strike not only negates effects, but it negates entire inherent summons as well, and it gets the monster off the field. If you can't afford Strike, you can use Lost Wind, which can recycle itself. So the attack stopping factor Fiendish Chain is really the only redeeming factor, and let's be real, that's probably not going to be relevant again, especially when Strike remains at 3, or even D-Barrier, which is around still at 3, and that can negate all your monster's effect of that type for the whole turn. Number 2, Dimensional Prison. With the amount of mirror forces we've seen released the last 2 years, Prison is just super underwhelming. Why bother targeting your opponent's one and singular monster when you can just set their entire field face down permanently or bounce it all back to the extra deck? With the introduction of Storming, Quaking, and even Drowning, I just cannot see why anyone would think D-Prison was a better option. Number 1, if you haven't guessed what it is by now, then damn, because there was a point in time where articles were written explaining why this deserves to be permanently banned. And this card also happened to be limited at 1 for a while, and yet here we are today, arguably okay without its existence. And that card is Mystical Space Typhoon. MST was just a straight up staple card in your deck for what has literally been a decade or something, but now with Twin Twister, why bother hitting 1 card when you can hit 2? You can also potentially further your game state by discarding a combo piece like Ram Ram or Mizuki, but if your deck can't afford the discard, you can play Cosmic Cyclone, and removal is generally better than destruction, especially when more and more trap and spell cards are being created that have graveyard effects. Cosmic is just going to be far superior. Now obviously MST doesn't have a 1000 life point cost, and MST can't be Starlight Roaded, so for those reasons alone, maybe it isn't number 1 in your eyes, but at least in my opinion, I feel like MST has lost all of its glam and luster. So a quick recap: number 10, that was Karma Cut; number 9, Zen Mains; number 8, Ghors and Tragodia; number 7, Bottomless and OG Trap Hole; number 6, Jinzo Breaker, Lila, etc.; number 5, Santa Claus, Lava Golem, etc.; number 4, Direwolf, Maestroke, Arc and Black Ship; number 3, Breakthrough Skill and Fiendish; number 2, D-Prison; and number 1, MST. And that's my top 10 most power-crept cards. If you disagree with anything or feel like I've missed anything out, feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to comment, like, and subscribe for more. See ya!
Come, face me. Give in to your pride.
And for the number 1 spot, for those reasons alone, maybe it makes it not deserving of the number 1 spot, but for me personally, I think MST has lost its luster. Pendulum Dragon. Luster. my immediate thought in my head was for after the word luster comes Pendulum Dragon. Okay, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! Number 3, Breakthrough Skill and Fiendish Chain by Solemn Strike, Dimensional Barrier, or even Lost... I picked the worst day to be sick, or to record, I guess. Tragodia is like a really weird spelling, isn't it? Because it's like, how do you pronounce this thing? Is it Tragodia, or like Tragodia, or like, you know, if you're German? I don't know, man. Jinzo Breaker, Lila, Yaksha, and other normal summons that deal with back. That's a lot of fucking cards, man. Castel's like replaced all of this shit, yo. Wait, Castel? Fuck. I mean Denko. Even my bloopers have like bloopers in the bloopers. Wow, okay. Anyway, if you've ever, I mean, if you have watched this far to the fucking end of this shit video, then please hashtag PowerCreep in the description. Leave a hashtag PowerCreep in the comments if you've watched this far, so I know that you actually like finished this fucking trash. So see you guys, and catch you